from the Message Bible this morning. And Paul is writing here, and he's giving us an understanding of something that I think is critical to every Christian believer. Here in Romans chapter 7, I'm going to start reading with verse 17. But I need something more. For I know the law, but still can't keep it. He knows the law, but he still can't keep it. And if the power of sin within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions, I obviously need help. How many have ever needed help? You knew what to do, you just didn't do it. Or you knew what not to do, but you still did it. How many fall into one of those two categories? Everybody in this room. Everybody in this room. He said, I can will it, I can want to do the right thing, but I can't do it. I decide to do good, but don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, but then I do it anyway. My decisions, such as they are, don't result in actions. Something has gone wrong deep within me and gets the better of me every time. How many would say that that's been you at some point in time in your life? You know what? It's been me. And Paul is giving us a good foundation for the very first step in the 12-step program. It's when we can't do the right thing. We know it and we still do wrong. We still do wrong. It's about recognizing our brokenness. We cannot do it on our own. Step one, we admit we're powerless over the effects of our separation from God, that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, I don't know about you, but I told you last week, and I told some of the people yesterday at this leadership meeting that I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My parents came through the Depression, which meant, and I told everybody yesterday, my dad, were he to be alive, next month would be 100 years old. So there was a lot of difference between myself and my sister and our parents' age. There was about 40 years difference. And so we grew up at a time where they were really concerned about money. They were really concerned about jobs. They worked all the time. Left alone from the time I was 12 years old. My sister was gone. She was in school. She had her own friends. She had a car. She was gone. I was left at home. I made a lot of decisions on my own, a lot of which were not good. I grew up in a time, let's see, I will be, believe it or not, I'll be 60 years old next year, not this year. But I grew up in the 50s and grew up in the days of before desegregation, where we had segregated schools. Blacks went to one school, whites went to another, and never the twain shall meet. Our high school team didn't even play the high school black teams because of that issue. Black schools played only other black schools, even if they had to travel a long way to do so. But what happened was, I grew up in a time where my parents worked because they had seen what it was like not to have and to lose everything. How many of you had parents that were like that? I mean, most of us who are a little older, maybe even some that are younger, grew up with parents that were workaholics. That was their thing. They got up in the morning and worked until the sun went down, had dinner, and went to bed. We were going like, what happened? You know, where's the rest of our life? Well, that's what we learned. And we came up studying that model because we thought that that's what life was all about. When in reality, that isn't what normal life is like. And I suffered from that. I suffered from the understanding that that's the way life was. And I couldn't help myself but grow up under that tutelage. I couldn't get away from it. In high school, knowing who I was on the inside and going through junior high, what's now middle school, knowing that you're different, knowing you've got different kinds of attractions, I started overcompensating by putting forth an image of success in school, grades, studied, then I got to the place where I didn't have to study. I knew how to take a test. I could take a test without studying. I made good grades, hundreds. I star student. Everybody hated me. I ruined the curve on many grades. But it took the edge off of me being gay on the inside, different than them. When I got into high school, was one of the very first National Honor Society students that ever got it going into the freshman year. By my junior year, I was already National Honor Society national president when I was a junior in high school. Had the grades, they were simple, had no problem. But I was using that perfectionism as a decoy for who I was. People were looking at that, seeing that much before they were seeing me. I was using that to hide behind. It made me feel better. It was a cocoon. I wore it everywhere I went. I got to the place where I couldn't take it off because it felt so good, soothing-wise, to be on the inside of it. But you know, when Israel was imprisoned in Egypt, working, they felt comfortable there. Being tortured every day. For 400 years, they felt comfortable. It was the right thing. They didn't know any different. They grew up understanding that, well, this is our life. We're to build bricks with straw and mud, and we'll be here for the rest of our eternity. This is our lot in life, and here we are. That's the way it felt growing up, because I wanted to be perfect so that no one who could see me really for who I was could see on the inside. The chain just keeps going, doesn't it? That's called dysfunction. When you do the same things every day, hoping for a different results, it just goes on. I got into college. My parents were Southern Baptists. Anybody here Southern Baptist? My parents were Southern Baptists. My dad was a deacon. Had been. I've told the story. I was actually born in First Baptist Church in Wichita Falls. I really was. The old clinic hospital is now part of the Baptist church there. So when I was born in the clinic hospital, I now say I was born in the church, right up there in that room right there. I grew up knowing that church was part of my life, and I excelled in that. My parents wanted me to go to Baylor. My mom went to Baylor. Her twin sister graduated valedictorian. My mother graduated salutatorian. So they pressured me to go to Baylor. I went there, didn't like it. Was going to go to Hardin-Simmons, didn't like it. I would have met lesbians there. So I went to ORU instead and met a lot of gays there. I went to ORU not having an understanding of the supernatural power of God. Having gone to a Baptist church, that's just what I knew. But I saw this group of people singing on television on the Oral Roberts program Sunday nights at 10:30, and I said, I want to be a part of that. I want to be on that television program. Went to school, tried out for a scholarship. They call them talent awards there at ORU. Tony Catanzariti, who's passed on now at the time, was the head of the vocal department. He says, oh yeah, we're going to give you a vocal scholarship. We just can't tell you how much until you apply and be accepted. And so I went through the acceptance program, and I got accepted and found out that they gave me a full tuition scholarship for 4 years. And looking at the school, you'd think that they just give them away like, you know, dimes at other places. And I found out later that they only give 2 of those a year. I made World Action. Those of you that know Kathy Gifford on Good Morning America, she was my partner in Singers and World Action. She and I were both on the program for 4 years. Got married because I had this little cocoon of this person who became acquainted with the Holy Spirit while I was there, came back to the Baptist church, didn't fit in there anymore. I met my wife, whose parents were known authors and evangelists in the early charismatic renewal back in the 70s, and got married and had kids and traveled and spoke and did everything, and still hiding from this wall. You put up these things, and some days you get up and you don't even recognize that they're there because they're part of you. I wanted to be perfect, but I couldn't hide behind that perfection forever. Because like anything, it's work, and it becomes difficult, and it becomes a labor, and you want to stop. But the moment that you want to stop is the real time where you have to say, I have to own up who I really am. Will people like me for who I really am? Will they accept me? You know, I was in a group of people that traveled and said that we love everyone except this group of people. And I heard that, and I heard that, and I heard that. And every day it challenged me, does God love me? Am I hiding from him? And I had to realize, you know, you can't hide from God. You can pull the covers up and you'll see his face right there. David, the Bible says, was a man after God's own heart. You remember the stories? I mean, he touched God in a way. And if you've got a Bible, turn to 2 Samuel. And once again, I'm going to be reading from, and this is quite a passage, but I want you to understand, David, who was a man after God's own heart, failed miserably at being a father. Failed. Not once, not twice, but time after time after time after time. He failed. It caused destruction. His family imploded. But God still loved him. We're going to read about 3 of his kids here. Absalom, Amnon, and a daughter by the name of Tamar. Sometime later this happened. Absalom, David's son, had a sister who, 13. 2 Samuel 13. And again, I'm reading from the Message Bible this morning. Sometime later this happened. Absalom, David's son, had a sister who was very attractive. Her name was Tamar. Amnon, also David's son, was in love with her. Amnon was obsessed with his sister Tamar to the point of making him sick over her. She was a virgin, so he couldn't see how he could get his hands on her. Amnon had a good friend, Jonadab, the son of David's brother Shemiel. Jonadab, who was exceptionally streetwise, said to Amnon, "Why are you moping around like this day after day? You're the son of the king. Tell me what's eating at you." In a word, Tamar, said Amnon. My brother Absalom's sister. I'm in love with her. Here's what you do. Go to bed, pretend you're sick. When your father comes to visit, you say, "Have my sister Tamar come and prepare some supper for me here where I can watch her and she can feed me." So Amnon took to his bed and acted sick. When the king visited, Amnon said, "Do me a favor, have my sister so-and-so." 7. David sent word to Tamar, who was at home at the time, "Go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare a meal for him." See the conniving stuff that's going on? The lies and deceit and all this stuff is undermining a leadership right here. So Tamar went to her brother's house, took dough, kneaded it, formed it into dumplings, and cooked it while he watched from his bed. Who cooks in their bedroom? Ever burned popcorn? Would you want that in your bedroom? When she took the cooking pot and to serve him, he wouldn't eat. Amnon said, "Clear everyone out of the house." And they all cleared out. Then he said to Tamar, "Bring the food to my bedroom where we can eat in privacy." She took the nourishing dumplings she had prepared and brought them to her brother Amnon in his bed. But when she got ready to feed him, he grabbed her and said, "Come to bed with me, sister." "No, brother," she said, "don't hurt me. This kind of thing isn't done in Israel. Don't do this terrible thing. Where would I ever be able to show my face? And you'll be out on the street in disgrace. Oh, please, speak to the king. He'll let you marry me." Now remember, they're just half brother and sister. Could that happen today? No sooner had but he wouldn't listen. Being much stronger than she, he raped her. No sooner had Amnon raped her than he hated her.